Hello, everyone. We're going to be going through chapters 20 through 24 today in Deuteronomy. And let's see here. And starting off verses 1 through 9 of chapter 20, it's basically the principles of governing warfare. And it says, when you go out to battle against your enemies and you see their horses and their chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Starting off reading this just right from the get-go, seeing this brought you up from the land of Egypt. We see this phrase a lot, and we have seen it a lot. And another phrase we see is remember that you were in slavery in Egypt, and just the humility in this, and the other warnings that we've already seen in terms of giving commands or information, if you will, to the Israelites, of just letting them know, hey, it's not for your righteousness. God says it's not for your righteousness that I'm clearing out these lands. Lest you think that it's because of the wickedness of these people. It has nothing to do with you and your righteousness. And it's kind of the same thing here, just this humility. The Lord's with you, and remember, it's the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And then in remembering the slavery, that hey, you guys were once slaves in Egypt. Remember that. So now when it's time to you have you're being blessed, you have this harvest. Remember the fatherless, remember the widows, remember the poor among you. So it speaks to humility. Here we see God speaks, and then the priest speaks, and then the officers speak. So God spoke first, and then the priest speak also to encourage the soldiers, and encourages them that God is with them and that their hearts not faint. And then the officers speak, and basically what they're saying is if you're here and we're about to go to battle, if you've built a house and you haven't dedicated it, if you've planted a vineyard and not eaten of it, if you're betrothed and you haven't married, go to your house and take care of these things lest you die. And as well, if you're here and you're fearful and faint hearted, go home. Go home, because it's contagious. So if you're fearful and faint hearted, just get out of here, because it'll spread and also make your brother's heart faint. And then in verses 10 through 18, it gives a scenario if they're going into a city that's far away, or if they're going into a city that's basically a city that they're to inherit. So for a faraway city, first of all, when they come, they're to come in peace, and they're to offer peace, and if that's accepted, then all the people will be placed under tribute and serve the Israelites. And if they don't make peace, then the Israelites are to kill all males and take women, the little ones, livestock, and then also all the plunder in that city. But for the cities of their inheritance, as we've already seen from earlier studies as well, everyone is utterly destroyed, period. Nothing that breathes shall remain there. Verse 18, lest they teach you according to all their abominations. And the land that they're moving into, it's to serve the Lord in a certain way, and to not even be tempted by any of the wickedness that's going on in the lands that they're dispossessing. And then in verses 19 through 20, in besieging a city, do not cut down trees that bear food. Only cut down trees that do not bear food for the siege works, that you're building. So that just is what it is. And then in chapter 21, verses 1 through 9, it's talking about an unsolved murder. What it is if there's a man that's found in a field, let's say, and so the man's found in a field, and they don't know who killed the man. Then there's these measurements that are taking, and the measurements are from the man to each city, and then the city that's closest in distance to the slain man is to bear the responsibility. Basically, the responsibility will fall on the elders of that city, and then those elders of the city are to bring out a heifer down to a valley with flowing water, and break its neck. And what I see here is just heifer's neck's broken, So the sacrifice is made of sorts, and then this dead heifer is now under the water, and water's flowing over this heifer. And then the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come near and bless in the name of the Lord. And then by their word, it says it's settled. And verses 6 through 9, and all the elders of that city nearest to the slain man shall wash their hands. Let's see here. Shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley. Then they shall answer and say, Our hands have not shed this blood, nor have our eyes seen it. Provide atonement, O Lord, for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, and do not lay innocent blood to the charge of your people Israel. And atonement shall be provided on their behalf for the blood. So you shall put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord. So this instantly brought to mind a scene in the New Testament, and I'm just thinking about what they're doing here for this unknown, for this man of this unknown murder, and it's just the opposite of what we see in the New Testament when the Israelites are bringing Jesus to Pontius Pilate, and rather than them washing their hands in atonement and wanting to put away the guilt of innocent blood, Pontius Pilate's saying this to them in Matthew chapter 27-24, when it says, when Pilate saw that he could not prevail at all, but rather that a tumult was rising, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person, that person being Jesus Christ, and then tells them, you see to it. Whatever it is that you want to do here, it's on you. I'm washing my hands of it. Then verses 10 through 14, if a female captive is wanted as a wife by an Israelite, there's this process of cleaning and then clothing and then caring for her. And part of this caring is allowing her to mourn for a full month. And then the union is consummated. And if there's no delight in her, then he is to set her free and not sell her. He can't sell her into slavery. And then verses 15 through 17. There's polygamy throughout this time period. And remember, polygamy was not a commandment of God. It's being allowed, but from Genesis we saw that it's one flesh, right? It's one flesh, man and woman. It wasn't multiple flesh, a man and 5 women. But anyway, there seems to be this grace that's given because there is polygamy going on. And if a man has multiple wives, his firstborn son has the right to the inheritance. So even if this man loves the second wife more, it's not like that son from the second wife would have the right to the inheritance. The firstborn son always does. Then in 18 through 21, a stubborn and rebellious son is to be stoned to death. Why? So you shall put away the evil from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. And also, if 22-23, if a man's hung on a tree due to a committed sin, he's to be buried the same day, so that he doesn't defile the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. For he who is hanged is accursed of God. And then chapter 22, 1 through 4. Basically, if you see a brother's ox, sheep, donkey, or garment, don't hide yourself from them, but rather bring them back to your brother. And in trying to bring them back to your brother, if you can't find them, then bring these items to your own house and take care of them until your brother seeks them. And then when he comes seeking them, then you restore those items to him. If you see your brother's donkey or ox fall down, help him. Help him get them up. Help him lift them up again. And really the lesson here is take action. Don't hide yourself. Don't just shirk responsibility. And then verse 5 is essentially no cross-dressing, and for all who do so are an abomination to the Lord your God. 6 through 7, this is really just chop, chop, chop. I mean, it's just topic after topic. If you find a bird's nest, you let the mother go, you can keep the young and the eggs. In verse 8, if you have a house, build parapets on your roof so that no one will fall off the house and die, and then so you don't incur guilt of bloodshed. In verse 9, if you sowing a vineyard, Don't sow a vineyard with different kinds of seed, lest the fruit of your vineyard be defiled. In verse 10, you shall not plow with an ox and a donkey together. Sounds like an odd pair. And then verse 11, you can't mix garments such as wool and linen. Verse 12, make tassels on the four corners of the clothing with which you cover yourself. And then 13 through 21, if a man takes a wife and he accuses her of not being a virgin, then the responsibility falls on the parents to basically prove to prove her virginity. And if indeed they do prove that she was a virgin, then the man is fined and he has to pay 100 shekels to the father, and he forever has to be married to her. He can't divorce her. If they can't prove it and she's found not to have been a virgin, then the men of her city will stone her to death, again to put away the evil. In verse 22, if a married woman has sexual relations with the man, then both are stoned. And then verse 23 through 30, there's just this sharing of if a woman's in a city and really she's raped of sorts, but if she kind of consents to it, if there's some consent there, then they're to be stoned. Um, if she cries out, so she's not consenting to it, then the man's to be stoned, and then she's not deserving of anything, so she's forgiven. And getting into chapter 23, he who is emasculated, a person of illegitimate birth, even in both of these, even to the 10th generation, or not both of these, illegitimate birth. So let's see, he was emasculated, a person of illegitimate birth, and then also if a person is an Ammonite or a Moabite, they are not allowed to. They're excluded from the congregation, and for the illegitimate birth and the Ammonite and Moabites, this even goes into the 10th generation. They shall not enter. And because for the Ammonite and Moabites, the reason for that is because remember when the children of Israel were leaving Egypt, they didn't help them out at all. And also they hired Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse them. Yet God did not listen to Balaam and turn his curse into a blessing. And it says here as well in verse 5, because the Lord your God loves you. And then in verse 7 it says, you shall not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. You shall not abhor an Egyptian, because you were an alien in his land. And then the children of an Egyptian of the third generation born to them may enter the assembly of God. And then there's this cleanliness of the campsite. And so when the army goes out against the enemies, then everyone's to stay clean. Keep yourself from any wicked thing. And then verse 12, I found this kind of funny, is just practical, and we'll see this in a second, is, have an outhouse, basically. Have a place outside the camp where you can go, and then it says have an implement, just, a shovel or some kind of digging device among your equipment. So when you sit down outside and you go number 2, hey, dig with this implement, and then turn and cover your refuse. Why? For the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp, to deliver you and give your enemies over to you. Therefore your camp shall be holy, that he may see no unclean thing among you and turn away from you. I just saw that as real practical. Hey man, cover it up, keep things clean. Why? Because the Lord your God walks among you. And then miscellaneous laws, if verse 15, you shall not give back to his master the slave who has escaped from his master to you. And let's see. Also, there shall be no ritual harlot of the daughters of Israel, or perverted one of the sons of Israel. You shall not bring the wages of a harlot or the price of a dog to the house of the Lord your God. This house of a dog, or the price of a dog, is referring to the male cult prostitute, not dogs. Literally, this is what the male cult prostitute was called in that time. Of the Lord your God, for any vowed offering from both of these are an abomination to the Lord your God. Okay, guys, we didn't make it to 24, so I am going to pick up in another video to make this up, and I will see you guys there.